Hi there. In this video, I will show you how to properly navigate the USCIS website to find all the necessary information you need for your marriage adjustment of status application. And again, whether you are planning on hiring a lawyer or doing this yourself, you do need to know how to double check addition dates on all the forms and how to communicate with the USCIS, since either way, you will be visiting this website many times in the next few years. Okay, so first things first, I want to start with AmaChat just because you don't really need it right now because they cannot answer any of your substantive questions. But after you submit your application, you will most likely connect to a live agent here on this website to either inquire into the status of your case. Maybe you will need to expedite your work permit or expedite your travel permit, or again, check on the expedite request of yours. Whatever the situation is, you will definitely need to know how this works. You do connect to a live agent by just clicking AmaChat. You need to use a few tricks generally in order to get to an actual live agent. But again, when it's time, you will know exactly how to do that. Just know that in order to contact the USCIS, you can either connect to AmaChat or you can also call their 800 number. But generally speaking, it's not a very fun experience to be hanging on that phone for many hours. So that's why AmaChat is a really nice alternative. But that's that, okay? So let me close that. You're obviously wondering, okay, so I'm in a marriage adjustment of status. I'm about to go for this process. Usually couples at this stage are like, okay, so what do I need to do? Where do I start? So you do want to know the list of forms that you need to prepare. Again, either you're working with a lawyer or doing it yourself, you do need to know obviously what goes into this process and what you on your end need to prepare in order to have a successful application. So as of right now, as far as I know, there is no USCIS page that you can go to that will basically tell you all the forms and all the supporting evidence that you need to attach with your application. It simply does not exist. So because of that, I actually created a mini course that you can gain access by following the links below. It's super easy. First, I did break down kind of what goes into the adjustment of status. So it's a very good starting point in order to understand what is this. Like I talk about inadmissibilities, eligibilities, like I do kind of go pretty deep into that. So just know that that's there. And I also list all the forms and filing fees so that you have one place where you can go and look up that information. Okay, super easy. So I do know which forms obviously go into this process, and after you watch that, you will know that as well. But from here, let me show you additional things that you need to know. So let's just say Form I-485, it is a part of this process. Form I-485 is an actual adjustment of status application, so that is a green card portion of this process. Okay, so let's go on this main page. Wow. So first of all, you will find a lot of alerts here. This is kind of new that there's so many, but it's just because there has been so many changes within the USCIS in the last few months. So this is very helpful. And this is the stuff that you want to be checking from time to time because they do notify you of what's going on. Like they're specifically saying that, Form I-693, meaning your medical exam does not expire anymore, and can be used indefinitely as evidence to show that the applicant is not inadmissible on health-related grounds, which basically what they're saying here, it's not very obvious, but what they're saying is that, hey, include your medical exam with Form I-485 so that we can waive your interview or approve your case faster, because now we made this medical exam valid indefinitely, but in the past it was only valid for 2 years, so sometimes people did not include it with their initial application. Either way, you're getting the point. They recently updated the filing fees, so there you go. There's an alert, and you will be able to see how to navigate that, which is a good thing for us to look into also at some point. Okay, so now let's look into the form itself. Okay, there are a few things that you need to know about the forms and a few things you need to know about the instructions, so I want to show you both. First of all, addition dates. So we will always scroll. Okay, so this is crazy, right? Because what often happens is that you are taking your time working on your application, or even an attorney has been prepping your application for some time, and in this time, the USCIS just randomly updated their forms. Okay, so the crazy thing is that nothing in the form itself changes. The form always stays the same. All the questions, answers, everything is exactly the same, but the addition date is different. And here's the addition date. So since it can happen unexpectedly and it always happens before the actual expiration, most of the time it happens way before the expiration and kind of randomly, you do need to check yourself. So here's how you do that. You just look at the addition. So you see that the addition date is this. We go back to the form and we see that that's exactly that. And they also have these interesting comments. So first of all, starting June 3rd, 2024, we will accept only this new edition, but until then you can also use the previous editions, which is never the case. Okay, so I know that they're saying that, and this is what makes it so kind of frustrating when you deal with the USCIS, but they say these things, and yet if you were to send this form even before, obviously way before June 3rd, they can still, and most of the time they do reject the application and they say, okay, you need to submit the latest edition. Or what has happened in the past is they would actually deny your case because they can claim that you submitted the old edition at a later stage, and it becomes incredibly frustrating. So you always have to submit the latest edition. This is just something that we've been dealing for many, many years, and you do need to know that. And then just see that the expiration date is one thing, but the edition date is a separate thing. So you always want to go based off the edition date. Okay, instructions. I also want to show you how to use instructions because, again, doesn't matter how you're handling this. It's going to be helpful because you might have questions and you will easily be able to locate it by just knowing how this document works. So first, let me show you the form itself. So there's this question on page 13 that couples always get wrong. And even some attorneys get wrong as well. I don't think anymore, but when it just came out, it was happening a lot, and a lot of cases got RFEs or got rejected, whatever. So page 13 is asking, are you subject to the public charge ground of inadmissibility under INA section 212A4? So the first reaction, for obvious reason, is no, I'm not subject to that. But actually, chances are that you are, and that's where the instructions are so helpful. So here we are. How many pages is this document? Like basically 41 page, right? So there's no way nobody would ever read this stuff. But I do want to show you how to properly navigate it. So if we just say public charge, look, it takes us straight to where we need to go. So to find out whether you're subject to the public charge ground of inadmissibility, see Policy Manual Volume 8. So let's open this. I will just show you how complicated it can be to deal with the USCIS. Okay, so we're here. Basically, this all means nothing, and there's no answer to what we need here. But if we go here, and then we click on Family-Based Adjustment of Status Applications, and we open this document, this is where we find out if we're subject or not subject to Rule 212A4. And as you can see, spouses, children, and parents of U.S. citizens, yes, are subject to INA 212A4, and that's why you would say yes on that question. That makes sense. Another thing I wanted to show you guys, let's go back. Okay, checklists. So now you know which forms you need to prepare as a part of this application. Now you know how to locate them. You just go through the USCIS website. But then obviously the question is, all right, well, I know that there is a bunch of evidence that I need to attach with each form. So how do I go about that? So here's the thing. Every form does have checklists, but they're just not helpful, to be completely honest. I mean, you can read through this information. I'm sure there's, they're mentioning that you can submit 2 things at the same time or whatnot. But when it comes to checklists, they're really, so we're looking at family-based. I mean, it's just, there's so many different categories that apply for Form I-485. That's why I think it's very difficult for them to make a good checklist for like all of these situations. That's why that is something that you will have to ultimately find on your own. And do know that you will be submitting multiple forms as a part of this application, and each form has their own evidence requirements. Some of them will repeat multiple times, like your birth certificate or your marriage certificate. That's going to be attached with multiple forms. But at the same time, different things go with different forms, because sometimes people are like, well, but what about relationship evidence? There's just going to be so much of it, right? Like a few hundred pages that usually they're like, so do I include it with just one form, or do I include it with the entire package? Like, how is this going? And you do need to know that the bona fide marriage evidence always goes with Form I-130. So you don't need to repeat it twice, but you're not kind of submitting, one piece of evidence for the entire application. You do need to include a form plus all the supporting evidence, then the next form and all the supporting evidence, and it changes depending on the form that you're submitting. All right, so let's look at Form I-130. So first of all, you can also just obviously Google. You don't need to go through the USCIS website. You can just say Form I-130 USCIS, and it's going to take you to the right page. I only want to mention one thing regarding this, and that is interesting that it can be done online, and very often people are like, okay, so does it mean that I need to submit, or does it mean that I can submit my entire application online, or does it mean that I do part of it online, part of it on paper? And here's the thing about it. So only Form I-130 can be submitted online. The rest of the application has to be submitted on paper, which means that it really doesn't make too much logical sense to separate them, because the USCIS in the past really couldn't connect the dots and caused a lot of issues for many applicants. But at the same time, recently, the USCIS started making a very serious mistake of issuing RFEs or request for evidence or notice of intent to deny, even basically saying that, hey, we did not receive any of your bona fide marriage evidence, or very little, when in fact people submitted a ton of it, and it looks like they're just not properly scanning it. So that's another thing of dealing with the USCIS. You always have to kind of adjust your strategy, or see what's happening at the time and see how to properly handle it. But for the most part, now you do know how to navigate the USCIS website, which is very important. And you do know the list of all the forms you need to prepare before the submission. Again, however way you're handling this process, you do need to make sure that you're using the latest editions of each forms, just because things could have changed in the meantime. And you always need to check the filing fees before submission, because it's also possible, it's less likely that they could change in the meantime, but you always need to double check yourself on that. You will be able to find that in the course, but there's also this form G1055. That's usually the one that I use. Basically, you will be able to see they do talk about the filings, like the filing fees, how you pay that, all of those things, which I don't think they're giving you very good information here, but you can also find that separately on the USCIS website. Either way, this is a very good tool, because you will be able to find exactly the filing fees that you need. And plus, you can also use the USCIS filing fee calculator. That's another very good resource to basically double check yourself or your attorney right before the submission, just to make sure that everything is good to go. Again, the filing fees recently changed, and people are still getting it wrong. Still, so many applications get rejected daily. So make sure that it doesn't happen to you. But that's it for this lesson. Thank you so much, and I will see you next week.